Welcome to SHOWstudio. Today we have Cav Empt in the studio over from Japan. That's Sk8thing and Toby Feltwell having an image-led discussion with Nick Knight. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Too.
Hello.
Good. So, how should we start? Shall I put an image up and just we'll launch into it?
That would be wicked. I'd like to see what you've got.
I'll show you mine.
Okay. Our overarching theme is youth and our many takes.
So I tried to think if I had to think of one image that did youth for me, what would it be? So I'll put this one, which I'm sure you guys will know already.
Oh, okay. Yeah, cool.
So Joseph Szabo, who photographed, I think he was a teacher, and he photographed his kids, he taught, I think. I'm right in saying that? He became, for me, he was really important in terms of the 90s and all of the sort of styling of the early 90s, the Melanie Wards, the Corinne Days. He became a kind of almost like the sort of image for them.
Yeah.
So really important, and it wasn't at all what I was into photographically at the time.
Right.
But it became a sort of such a strong thing. So what? Enough said. But his work for me symbolised more than Larry Clark, more than a lot of other people. He seemed to me more, and partly because he's less upfront about it. You see less of him. People don't know him.
Right.
Live a bit longer.
Yeah. I've seen. Where did I see this recently? This has sort of come back into my. I've noticed this image again really recently.
It was used on an album cover or record cover just recently.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. It's 20 years ago, more than 30 years ago since it first came out.
Yeah.
So it's really ingrained into the kind of
かっこいいねこの写真。Yeah, because what you were doing at the time was radically different.
From this.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I wasn't. Where were we? 1990 roughly. Yeah, I was just finishing my relationship with Yoji Yamamoto.
Yeah.
That lasted from 87 to about 1990. Starting a relationship with Jill Sander.
Right.
But it was pre-Alexander McQueen, pre my relationship with John Galliano. So my images were much more constructed.
Yeah.
So I looked at imagery in a way that wasn't like this. I wasn't searching for naturalism or was sort of trying to record. When I first started, I did with Skinhead.
Yeah.
That was the first. I can drag an image up from Skinhead if you want.
Well, be great.
See if I got one somewhere. Actually, you know what? I didn't take one of my ones. I thought I don't want to have any of my images on this at all. However, my youth was this. That's a very good picture for me. Partly because it symbolises the sort of torment and the strife that was the early 1970s. Because I looked more like the people sitting down when because I was in Belgium, I got back to Britain, I looked more like the people on the stairs than I did the skinheads.
Yeah.
So at the age of 10, skinheadism had quite an effect on me.
Yeah, nice.
Basically, I got beaten up quite a lot. So
really? Yeah, they're just, it's amazing. It's sort of like, this photo, the total disgust of the skins for everyone else in the world.
Yeah.
Comes across, it's like nuts.
Yeah. But the weird thing is that since then, I associate much more with the skinheads than I do with the people on the stairs.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's...
どうこれなんかしんちゃんもこういうもの見てた若い時。
ニック先生の本でね、やっぱあれ買っちゃいましたね、ゲームがね。世界中の若者も本教科書に変わっちゃいましたね。
Yeah. So I mean, Shin sort of first saw images of skins through your book, really.
Right.
And that sort of opened up a whole new world for him. なんかなりたかったでしょ、しんちゃん。
もうその本をずっとこう枕元に置いてこう。
Yeah.
ジャンプの仕方とかそういうのを。
Yeah. He basically wanted to be a skinhead after seeing your work.
Right. And that's what I wanted to be too.
Yeah, and he would sort of he's told me before that he used to practice heading, like jumping.
Yeah.
Headers
from the picture.
Sort of,
yeah.
So no, this is.
But this is probably about 1968, 69. So it's the first generation of skinheads.
Yeah.
Who were largely ignored by the British media. They didn't write about them. They weren't covered. They were kind of the little brothers of the mods. The mods got a lot of coverage, but when the mods got too kind of dandy and effete, their little brothers didn't want anything to do with it, and they did a very but I think it's a super interesting thing why I'm perpetually drawn to skinheadism. About 67, they said, right, we reject fashion in every way. And so these were working class boys and working class girls. They would wear anything that wasn't fashion.
Right, anti-fashion. Yeah.
So it was like their dad's clothing and donkey jacket or kind of work boots or whatever. So it was a really totally anti-fashion statement. So I think it's super interesting.
Well, yeah, it's, that what they're wearing makes so much sense now compared to what everybody else is wearing, which is interesting, but also like total. It's an old photograph. Apart from the skins, who that's how people dress today.
Yeah.
So what? Yeah, the Rolling Stones concert, I guess, wasn't that where they sort of appeared, like Hyde Park?
I don't know. I mean, you talk about the date of the first sort of sightings of skinheads.
Yeah.
It comes about 66,
Right.
67. There's a picture in a book, which I found in the old press files, which is a bench in sort of some seaside town, and it's got like 5 mods on it and 1 skinhead, and you can see the difference stylistically between these kind of slightly kind of more effete, more sort of tailored versions of dressing, and then this kind of lump and difficult, kind of clunky look, which is the skinhead look.
And where though? Like East?
All over the place. I mean, a lot in London, obviously, but also Liverpool. I mean, up and down the country. When it
so
first starts,
it wasn't just a London. I always have the impression of it being mostly a London thing.
No, not if you go to Liverpool or Manchester and say that.
No, really?
They probably wouldn't agree.
Okay.
It was so undocumented. But that's the real beginnings of it. It doesn't get noticed, doesn't get reported, doesn't get photographed much at all.
Right.
So I had to dig quite deep to find the pictures to show at the beginning. But then it quickly turns into the kind of boot and braces look, which is this.
And
that's its first thing. And then it slips really interestingly into different looks over the sort of 4 or 5 years it exists. So it goes from the boot and braces look into a much more sort of city gent look, where they sort of parody the British city gent with the bowler hat and the umbrella and the Crombie and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, because I remember I read the books like those. There's those like skinhead, suede head, like
they're dreadful. Yeah,
they're really bad. But I guess that sort of in a way, like there's a sort of progression. Like he sort of like goes and gets a job in a city firm. Yeah, and
Joe Hawkins or where he is.
Yeah.
I mean, I was given the script for those books. I was given the script for somebody bought the rights to make a film of those books.
Yeah.
So I was given it as a film project, and I read the books and I thought, I can't do a film with this.
No, they're
it's just too bad.
Yeah, they're dreadful.
They're very xenophobic and unpleasant and everything else. But so the skinhead look, goes from the sort of boots and braces into the city gent, and then goes out via suede head and into smoothie. And it's unrecognisable. By 1972, it just blends into glam rock and is kind of gone. But there's about a 4 or 5 year period where it's particularly good as a sort of travelling, an evolution of a style of dress. Which I think is really interesting. We don't tend to get that so much now. You don't tend to get this sort of way where something sparks and it kind of keeps on rolling.
No. Yeah, totally. Trends kind of. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, sort of genuine youth-generated like dressing styles like that. They're kind of. I think it's more difficult for them to exist now because.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, it's partly because this was unreported in the British press. Yeah. And partly because obviously it's pre-internet and pre-global communication.
Pre-marketing, really.
Yeah.
Which is the sort of.
And all the sort of marketing was going on the kind of hippie and the dandy and all that sort of angular sort of rock music. This was being ignored. But this in Britain was basically what all the working class kids looked like. If they didn't look like kind of nothing at all, they adopted a style. They weren't going to go towards hippie or greaser or anything like that. They would go towards skinhead. So most of the kids at school with me looked a bit like that. So, and I didn't. So that was a problem that I had to sort out.
Yeah.
But it's kind of perverse that in the end you look like the thing you disliked most or the thing that you feared most. Yeah. I think it's interesting and I'd be interested to know what Shin thinks, but how important our youth is for us. Because are we just living back our memories of youth? I mean, is that what we do all the way through our lives?
どうでしょう。なんかもうずっとなんか若い頃のメモリーを繰り返しているような生き方してるか。
どうですかね。
どうかな。でなんか僕はなんかその若い頃にいろんな意味でなんかいろいろ新しいものに興味持って、それをずっと まあ少しずつこうやっていくんだけど基本的にずっと同じゾーンにいるっていう。Yeah, we were sort of talking. We were talking about it yesterday, but it's like it's always, in a way, always in the same. Like I'm still interested in the same. We're both still interested in the same things we were interested in when we were young. Yeah. And continue to work in that zone. It's like we had an interview yesterday, and I think it was about streetwear or something, and the guy was like, in a way, sort of saying, you know, the target audience for what we do is not necessarily ourselves now because we're old, you know, it would be the sort of like standard way of looking at it, like, haven't you grown out of this stuff yet, in a way, you know what I mean? But it's like, well, that's what we do, you know, that's kind of like what we're interested in. And the power of, like, when you're young, you can have a lot of ideas and creative energy and want to do stuff, but you've got very little access to actually, you know, resources to create anything. So what's available is like music, fashion, things that don't require an establishment to get moving. Yeah. And those are still, as a result, the places where the newest things seem to occur. So that's always, to us at least, always been the most interesting place of focus. It's like, I guess some people kind of do grow out of that in the sense that they become interested in science or medicine or politics or something that requires a much bigger establishment and investment and experience, I suppose. But we've always just been interested in that newness in terms of people without any resources necessarily, but just like good ideas and just like straight expression.
Well, I guess this is, you know, the skinny picture I put up is a bit that. You know, they've got no resources. At the time, the genuine working class kids, you know, they're generally from dockers' homes or kind of, you know, it's the pure working class. Yeah. Because they had no resources other than taking their father's clothes. Yeah. Which is what they did. Which is partly why I like the purity of that. Yeah. I guess what interests me, I shouldn't get too, I just have to remember to keep on putting images up here, but I guess what interests me is there's a passage from being a child to being an adult, which we all go through. Yeah. Some people go through it very definedly, you know, and some people go through it a very slow, low way that kind of stretches out all over their lives. And it's, I don't know what you think, but you know, when do you become an adult?
どうだね、いつ大人になるのかな。
大人になる。
なんかしんちゃんわからないよね、多分。
大人になる。昨日もその話になりました、ね。
そうだね。
ってことはやっぱそのこだわりをみんな持ってるんじゃないですか。
そうね。なんかなんでこのおじさんたちはまだこういうことやってるっていうか。
そういうことだよね。それは昨日聞かれたもん。
ね、いつ大人になったの、しんちゃん。
いや、なんないじゃないですかね。ずっとそうにずっとこのまま行くんじゃないですか。
Yeah, Shin particularly, I think he's like no change, like in his lifestyle since もうずっと変わらないよね、しんちゃん。もう10代から。
はい、そうですね。
Yeah, maybe since his teens, like nothing's really changed for him.
Right. Can I put another picture up on that score then?
Yeah.
I'll keep this moving. See if I can find one.
I should come up with something.
Good to get one from you guys as well.
Yeah, I'll give you a picture frame.
Can I, maybe I could. Oh, sorry. Yeah, this was like, okay. I'll have to show you the video. I was thinking about youth. This is something that occurred to me. Hold on, let me start from the very beginning. This scene as well, interesting as well, because this is all like.
When is that?
92 maybe.
Right.
So. Oh shit, that's dodgy.
Warning.
Okay, well that's kind of okay. Let's just leave it there. So,
great. What is it?
Other
than youth?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty youthful. It's it's like emo punk before, like, well, a long time ago, San Diego.
Right.
And I was sort of quite involved in this scene, but the look as well is interesting, you know, just it's
because it's similar, yeah, because I thought, well, if we first put it up, I thought, that's a bunch of mods.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Yeah, and they, you know, and they're in San Diego, so it's actually like, obviously like,
Yeah.
they should be sort of like wearing surf shorts and, you know, and it's nice and sunny and everything's like sort of relaxed, but they would sort of like wear leather jackets in the middle of the summertime, these guys. And it's all like, you know, thrift store clothes and stuff, but this was, yeah, when I was 18, this was...
So you weren't actually there? You
I
weren't physically
wasn't.
part of it,
I wish
or
I
you're mentally
could,
there?
I wish I could have been. Yeah, no, there was a very small scene in England, and it was funny. I was talking to somebody yesterday about like I was into the wrong hardcore because like this is hardcore, but it's not like raving, and which would have been like the right thing to be into at that time. But
yeah, it was a thing that a lot of people were into. I don't think it's the right thing.
It's interesting the amount of fashion people, like Kim Jones was into the whole kind of straight edge hardcore scene.
Yeah, Kim. Yeah. I've seen him with Gorilla Biscuit t-shirts a lot. Yeah. So yeah, I went to the Gorilla Biscuit show. That was good. But I guess I got into that because of skateboarding.
Yeah.
And you know, that's, you know, Shin's older than me, but we definitely, skateboarding was kind of amazing, I think, for like over a few generations of a way. It introduced you to a lot of stuff outside of the actual act of skateboarding, you know what I mean? Like fashion, music, design, graphics.
I really hadn't realised it was such an important scene, to be honest, because it wasn't, in the way I grew up and the way I developed, it wasn't at all.
Right.
There were no skaters in a little tiny village in the Cambridgeshire countryside
that
I lived in, and there was none when you went to London. It just wasn't, you know, if you imagine that, it just wasn't, it wasn't part of anything at all.
Yeah.
It came, I don't know when skate first started in Britain.
どうかな、なんかイギリスのスケートシーンは70年代なんだろう、まあアレックスとか、
ありますよ。
Yeah, 70s.
76年とか7年じゃない。
Yeah, maybe 76, 77 we think.
Yeah, I was just going to art college at that point.
Yeah, no, so our friend Alex was like a pro, and he was in, he was also like 23 Sk8thing.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Right.
So, but you know, pro skateboarder, and in that band with his brother. And yeah, so we know quite a bit. We know a few of the guys, like our friend Jules as well, who moved to New York and was like a big hip hop DJ afterwards. Was also like, they were all like sort of UK 70s skateboard pros.
So it must, you can't, because I can't, growing up I can't remember it being a thing at all. And so it must have been about mid-70s.
Yeah, I think that was what, I mean, but there was a lot of skate parks that got built, like, because I remember when I first started skateboarding, I actually went to like concrete skate parks, which, you know, and I guess it got popular again. またなんか2回目のセカンドウェーブはいつだったかな、なんか87とか
83、4、5、6、そうですね。
そうだね。ピークは7、8。Yeah. So in the sort of mid 80s to this sort of second major peak of skateboarding is probably like 87, 88.
Right.
And that's when I would have started. Shin had been skating for years by then already, but and it was like sort of globally massive then.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the 70s, I guess I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I remember riding skateboards when I was a little kid because my I don't know. That's not that interesting. But I mean, I guess it didn't sort of like maybe hit sort of mainstream culture in Britain that much. Or maybe it was actually quite mainstream. Maybe I think it was quite square originally. It was sort of a bit normal.
It had a kind of. I mean, little bit I knew about it. It was just came from America. It was an American thing. Much like kind of those bouncy balls that you know. It was an American thing. It was a kind of. Doesn't sort of, it didn't kind of work in any of the sort of,
Oh yeah, from that definitely. I see what you mean from that. Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense.
That second wave also, maybe even third wave in the early 90s, or maybe it's from that second wave, was when the impact was on fashion as well.
But what Nick's saying is totally right. It was like a totally American thing. It's just like purely American culture.
I'm going to put an image up just because it'll take us somewhere slightly different, but still connected vaguely. Hopefully we'll put an image up.
Why do so many
wicked. What is going on here? Oh, they're just squashing.
Being arrested, probably a skater being arrested and having a skateboard used to arrest him with. Which kind of brings me into something I want to talk to you about. I mean, most of my youth was spent dodging the law and not getting caught and not getting, getting away with it. Mostly by luck, rather than anything planned or clever or whatever it is.
Right.
Just didn't get caught. But I mean, it felt to me that there was a very big risk of actually coming off the tracks and kind of ending up in a kind of Borstal or a proof school or whatever it was. Well, that was what happened to a lot of kids. If you were not that careful with what you did, then you ended up falling foul of the law.
Yeah.
And there's this whole thing. It's the tricky thing now is I have 3 children. That's not a tricky thing. That's happened quite easily. It's sort of surprising how people can have children so easily without any kind of authority on how to bring up a child.
You don't need a license.
You don't need a license. You don't need to learn anything. It's the most important thing. One of the most important things you're ever going to do in your life.
Yeah.
And yet you do it naturally, but with no qualification of doing it at all.
Yeah.
And hence you start this life off, which you just don't. You're not equipped at all to deal with it. The whole thing of parents and kind of how to sort of guide your children through life without this happening to them becomes an issue. I'm not quite sure where you guys are sort of in terms of children. Or
no, neither of us have kids. But yeah, I mean, well, I sort of would you agree that like these days in comparison to when you grew up and when we grew up, I think there was more room for people to make a few mistakes though in the past, and now it's like you kind of can't. You just and everybody's. I think people seem a bit more nervous about like screwing up because you don't necessarily get a chance to fix it.
Do you mean screwing up with the law or screwing up with
just
the parents?
Screwing up? Just in general, like anything, like getting fired from a job, like that can't happen once now. Where it used to be like all kinds of things would go wrong and you'd end up okay. Right. But I sort of feel like I don't know if it's just because everything's sort of recorded in a way, or like you just like sort of send a drunken tweet and then that's it. You got no friends the next day, that kind of thing.
That's what happened to me. I was wondering where they went.
But it just sort of seems like it's a lot. You got to do everything right.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. So I always find it difficult making comparisons in that way, saying it's worse than, better than, etc., etc.
Yeah, no,
it's different from everybody. Every different thing. I just, I guess what you do is so much more accessible now to people.
Yeah.
And the sort of the systems for like if you get caught by the police for doing anything, it goes on a file and it's all put down, and it's all noted and everything. So that's much more. And then there's all the thing trying to travel between countries. Which becomes a problem.
Yeah.
So in that way, it's a lot more sort of recording the information is a lot more sort of ready for people to access.
People were definitely allowed to have much more of a semi-criminal period. It was almost expected, whether it's a little kid nicking apples from the tree next door to, you constantly read about sort of people that did fantastic things for the country were like in the Communist Party or and you know, and yet they were allowed to work for the government, or skinheads. You know, and you can't recover from that. You're right. You can't recover from being somebody like that anymore. You kind of get.
It's quite easy to Google now.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I kind of like in a way.
Yeah.
I don't mind the fact that everything's accessible.
No, it's quite,
and I know we want to talk about futurism to a certain degree, which I'm seeing as a sort of love of the future, and I'm seeing rather than the sort of 1920s art movement.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of being attracted to the future.
Yeah.
So I don't get any of those sort of fears of kind of, you know, people say, oh, it's all too fast now, we're too. I never get that.
No. Yeah. No, I agree. It's always. I mean, if you could sort of decide these things for yourself, if you could just sort of decide how you're supposed to feel about things, and like come up with a policy, it sort of seems to make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
To be more excited about what's coming next, because that's all that's left. You know what I mean?
Well, it's. I mean, I've always been drawn to what's coming next. Maybe because you sort of deal badly with what you have, so you think it's going to get better tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I'm always sort of drawn to the future. I'm going to stick another image up.
Cool.
Put a little cluster up because they all sort of pertain to roughly the same subject. So.
Oh, okay.
That fella and taking the similar sort of thing, but taking it periodically different. This girl.
Oh.
So Blade Runner and Ex Machina.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, well, it's science fiction's like interesting, and we sort of get asked about it a lot, and I've sort of developed some sort of professional answers to the questions,
right?
But like. It's interesting. I was sort of interested in the idea that sort of like, particularly if you think about like cyberpunk literature, which is not that long ago.
Yeah. Like the William Gibsons.
Yeah. But now is almost quite. Some of it's quite banal because it's all that. Yeah, of course you can just go on the internet. Like it's not a big deal. Like virtual reality goggles, not a big deal.
Yeah.
But why it's interesting in a way is to look at that now and think about when these things had to be science fiction.
Yeah.
And the thing, like this, technology wants to kind of be as mundane as possible so that it's easy for people to accept. Like it shouldn't be a revolution because they just pick it up and use it.
Yeah.
So if you look at it through sort of science fiction glasses, it's like, fuck, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But it's totally mundane because it's you just go to the shop and get, and I've got to go, my phone's broken or whatever. It's just normal. But if you can sort of like step back and see how people thought about this stuff when they were just imagining it, like on the border of it being real, it kind of makes the world feel a bit like exciting again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can just sort of.
I remember reading Neuromancer and there's also a writer called Alvin Toffler. Alvin Toffler, a great sort of predictionist, sort of saying what the future is going to be. And I think it was quite right in a lot of things he said, politically, sort of break up of countries and systems and break down barriers and reactions to that.
I mean, we found this one. I don't know if you know the book, but there's this book called The Invention of Morel.
No, not
let's see if I can get an image here. This might be. I'll put this up and it'll be titchy, which will be quite embarrassing. This is probably tiny, this image. Is that working? Okay. So and this is an interesting one because it was like what's the date of it? This is actually a more interesting one. This is like the original. It was written in 1940, and what it's about. And I'm sort of going to give this away to anybody that might feel like reading it, because it's kind of, it's got a punchline in the book, so it's a bit of a shame to sort of say what it's about, to be honest. But a guy fleeing from the law goes to an abandoned island, so there's nobody living there, but there's this kind of interesting Art Deco installation building there, and like a swimming pool and stuff, and he sort of cleans it up, and it's actually like ideal situation to be sort of hiding away. His boat gets destroyed when he arrives, so he knows he can never leave, but he's kind of quite happy. Then one day people just appear on the island, and he's like, doesn't know where they came from, just runs away scared, hides from them for ages because he just assumes they've come to sort of arrest him or something. But they seem to be like, they're sort of like having tea dances and stuff, and there's like one particular woman who's the focus of the book in a way, and who's sort of modelled on Louise Brooks, who just goes every day to the sea, one particular point, looks out at the sunset reading a book, and he just falls in love with her from a distance. He can't talk to her because he's afraid that he'll get arrested, and they'll report him and all that, whatever. So he doesn't understand where they've come from, they just suddenly appeared. He eventually feels compelled to talk to her. And actually he tries to communicate by making a flower arrangement, which is very strange. But
good for him.
Eventually he just goes straight up to, he tries to talk to her, she's just ignoring him. She just won't acknowledge his existence. And eventually he realizes that they can't really see him. And what it is to just sort of like, just totally destroy this book for anybody that wants to read it, is 20 years previously, this guy Morel, scientist, brought a group of his friends to the island, and he's invented a device which records their presence and replays it. So they're projections, but they're like physically solid projections. So they've all been dead for years. But one of the effects of the machine is to actually, you die after having been recorded. So he's just recorded like a party with all of his friends on this island for eternity. They're all dead. And the one guy that's actually on his own on the island, in love with this image of a woman who's been dead for 20 years. And they just kind of keep replaying on a loop.
Great. And what a lovely parallels
to now. And it was written written in like 1940, which is like so there's a film version of it as well, which is great for us because it's a 1974 Italian.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Not by Dario Argento by any chance?
No, it would be great if it was, but it's like it's like Anna Karina plays the
plays the girl.
leads.
Oh wow! How good's that?
It's great.
L'influenza del futuro sul passato. Peccato che lei non voglia credere, che non possiamo intenderci.
Peccato. E perché?
Perché abbiamo un termine breve, 3 giorni, e poi non avrà più importanza.
Possibile che non ci sia altro argomento di conversazione?
Ma perché no? A me interessa molto. Morel, continui, per favore.
No, hanno ragione loro. Ne discuteremo un'altra volta, in un'occasione più propizia ed opportuna.
Fantastic interiors.
So many of your graphics relate to Italian film.
Yeah, definitely.
Ma siccome siete miei amici,
it's a funny combination with the sci-fi. Oh no.
Well, yeah.
No, you see it in terms of this.
Well, not in terms of this, but
sorry, you're in the worst place to see that film.
Sorry.
No,
very good.
But because it's interesting, because at first I was like, who are all these pretty women on these graphic T-shirts?
Well, yeah. I mean, me and Shin was always been into horror movies. Me too as well. We used to, I think we're both big John Carpenter fans, and she hadn't seen every one, even to the extent where it got a little bit psycho because some of them were so like quite hard to get and pretty rubbish. Yeah. There was like, you know, I mean, Escape from LA. Like, I don't think most people have watched that. Like, that really destroys the memory of Escape from New York. It's so bad. But there's always like something in them, because they're sort of like horror movies, and especially the Italian ones, like Dario Argento. They're amazing films, but they're like really terrible from all of the traditional measures of a good film, like sort of scripting. Yeah, they just don't like hang together at all. There's just a lot of it's unresolved. It's not a proper story, but it's just a collection of amazing images. It's kind of, and in a way, there's a lot that's quite troubling about those films, because they're like so misogynistic.
Yeah, well, a lot of that 70s stuff was, all across the board.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy. It's just like a sort of collection of beautiful women who are on screen to look beautiful and then get murdered savagely, which is pretty terrible. But I guess it gave them a framework to come up with situations where they could just create some incredible, unbelievable images. Yeah. And that was sort of, and plus the music is also amazing. Yeah. So they're kind of like music videos, I guess.
Just like 2-hour ones.
Yeah, but I mean, some of them are, I mean, a lot of them don't really bear watching as films.
Yeah, more as kind of like great inspiration for reference.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is also a lot about how we work.
There's one called Nothing Underneath, which is the fashion giallo. So it's got like I think it's got a Moschino fashion show in it. Right. Like quite a late one, 80s. But it's just about a psychopath kills models with big scissors. And it's called Nothing Underneath, meaning, I think, referring to like models. It's like a sort of, just clothes and, you know, like nothing underneath.
Harsh.
So totally harsh. But also kind of self-referential to the film, which is just like completely like vacuous like nonsense. But
I was sort of hoping that, because I've been searching, because I'm doing a series of horror films at the moment.
Oh, right.
So we're trying to do a thing on horror films. So it occurred to me that people will happily go to the cinema and pay $15 or whatever it is now, I don't know what it is, to see a film, to be scared out of their wits. Yeah. But when it comes, and you know, they'll see in those films, they'll happily see people having their eyes gouged out, or their, you know, faces broken up, or raped or murdered, or whatever it is. But if you try and apply any of that language to fashion imagery, it's like an uproar. It's a no, you can't do it. You know, I mean, fashion imagery now feels so tightly controlled in a sort of political correct way. Yeah. You know, you can do very, very little with it. You know, you can't. You can imagine a front cover of Vogue with somebody with a bruise on their face, for instance. It's so limited what you can actually do in terms of mainstream fashion imagery.
Do you think it's more limited at the moment? Like,
yeah, I think it's got super limited now. Yeah. I think because it's driven mainly by commercialism and the idea to sell, to go to the lowest common denominator. And I think before, I mean, you look back at the work of Bourdain and Newton and Van Wagenheim, they were obsessed with death. You know, Newton's pictures, you know, are mainly of come dead women, or women who are about to die, or women who are killing somebody, or, you know, it is that. Because the 70s, and the 70s, you said, were a lot more, you know, difficult politically to look at in that way. I mean, starting off with the skinhead books, you know, they're pretty horrible. And all those sort of terms. When you were talking about the For Nothing Underneath, as I said, I've been doing a series of horror films. I've been trying to find this Japanese horror film, which I don't know if I've invented it in my mind or it actually exists, but maybe you'll know it. The premise of the film is that actually the most scary thing of all is there's nothing. And there's a void or some sort of emptiness. And I've got a feeling it's black and white Japanese, 1970s, 80s maybe.
70年代のなんか日本の
いっぱいありますね。
I'm gonna, no, not immediately. I'm gonna.
In my mind only then.
Well, I don't know. I have to work on that one.
What I wondered about with Cav Empt was there's a kind of outsider. You kind of try and create this And Sk8thing's talked before about it being for outsiders, and I find it really interesting that a lot of your imagery has a sort of breaking of the fourth wall in it, so it almost feels like you know, somebody's watching you. And especially with, you know, Cav Empt, meaning buyer beware, I sort of feel like there's this kind of underground resistance kind of
there's
vibe.
sort of like a bit of interaction with the audience.
But like a kind of underground resistance kind of vibe to it, and your kind of conscious rejection of, you know,
You are.
the fashion system.
Well, yeah, fashion. Yeah, it's a. I don't know. I guess we just sort of feel like we wouldn't be very welcome anyway. So it's sort of like we're not trying to be members of a club that doesn't want us. But yeah, it's weird. I guess I was talking about this. I got well. In a way, the trouble with creative business, well, fashion in particular, is that it thrives on it. Its nature is to change and to die, and new things are created usually by young people with ideas and not much resources, as I was saying earlier. But anybody that's already successful, they just want to stop it and freeze it and stabilize it as much as possible, because as a long-term strategy, just like, no, it's cool, I can keep, whatever happens, I'm going to stay on top of it. This doesn't really work. So the establishment in fashion kind of wants things to be frozen. And so I kind of feel that the attitude of people who are already there, made it, been doing it for years, in terms of something, and this doesn't really apply to us because we've been doing it for years, we're sort of insiders, but if something new happens, and I feel that the fashion establishment basically wants to squash it or co-opt it, kind of buy into it or make you buy into what they're doing, so that you become part of the system as quickly as possible. And sometimes that really, if you're making a fashion brand, it's just a relationship between you and the people that might buy it, and the rest of it, like what your peers think about it, is interesting, relevant. But as long as you've got a relationship with an audience, then you can keep doing it as long as you want. And the rest of it is kind of how relevant. It depends what you're going for. I know that some people, probably their motivation is to be recognised by their peers and people they respect, maybe. Whereas
it's an interesting topic, what people's motivation is.
I mean, I think for us it's just to be able to keep like sitting around playing each other YouTube videos and still somehow like keep putting out stuff that's just like the fruits of that.
And do you think it's the same as when you were kind of in your teens? Do you think you had the same motivation? Because it's a very destabilising, all the sort of money, fame, wealth, all those power, all those sorts of things, totally destabilising.
Totally.
And you start off and you're sort of mid-teens thinking, I want to be this person, this is who I want to be. But then it's just kind of, things like money really damage that. I'm completely hypocritically going to say I think money is the root of all evil. But I can be torn apart hypocritically. I do think there's something vastly wrong with money. I also think that of fame as well. But I'm interested to know sort of what you feel as kind of. Do you feel that you're still on the same? Are you still the same people you wanted to be?
どうかな、しんちゃんはでもなんかずっと変わらないじゃん、しんちゃんは若い時から。別になんか何かなろうと考えたことないよね。なんかどうでしょうね。何かになりたいっていう。
いや、ニックの本のああいうのになりたいとかそういうのあったんじゃないですかね。
Shin's only ambition was to be one of the people in your skinhead book. Like
I'm not sure what to say to that.
Yeah, but
I can't make that happen, I'm afraid. Sorry.
But I think that, I mean, Shin's a great influence for me because he's like completely unchanging always.
Yeah.
Not, you know, just always just he's just interested in like new shit, like what's happening. I want to know what's happening.
Yeah.
And for me, like we've both experienced being part of brands that got really big, and you see the focus changes because that's exciting and fun as well. But nobody started doing those things from, well, at least the people that we know didn't start it with the intention of I want to have a giant business and be like an employer and a businessman. You know, they just did stuff that they were into, people liked it, and then it sort of snowballs before you know it.
Yeah.
You're not
I'm going to drag a few images onto the screen while you talk, not to stop you talking, but just because they seem pertinent to what you're saying.
Yeah.
I just wondered, just because I think there's something quite sweet in the imageries. Like, I've got a hoodie of yours that says phone lines cut, and it's got the, you know, and I'm guessing it's the first thing that happens when anything, you know, happens, like when there's a bomb goes off or there's a riot, the first thing is. And I guess just to, what I found really interesting is you seem to be aestheticizing in a way like the loner or anonymous. And you know, and skinhead imagery is very much about being part of the tribe, but maybe in 2015 the most subversive thing you can be is that loner or anonymous.
Yeah, I don't know what it's. I mean, what's it like now? It's very difficult because.
Let me just put an image up while we're talking, partly in sort of juxtaposition to what you're saying about the loner.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, people used to actually sort of like have to. There were. If you lived in a small town, then you have to. That's amazing.
So that's what I'm thinking. Is it about being, or is it the whole thing of belonging?
Yeah, in a way, I think like you got you find a good, like skateboarding basically. Is that like it was never, even when it was popular, it was never that popular.
Yeah,
and especially in England, quite weird, or in Japan. Right. It's like if you were in San Diego, it'd be like, oh yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
But it was a sort of perverse thing to be into, and you had a group of friends, and you're all into this one thing. And exactly the same in Japan. Skateboarding is American culture. We had to like read the magazines, and that's where it came from. There wasn't really anything we could add to it at that stage. It's changed now. Because it's become more global, but it was definitely like everything came down the pipeline from America. We just wanted to sort of go to American, like it's like Shin wanted to be a skinhead, we wanted to be American.
Funny how you always want to be what you're not.
Yeah. But you have, because it's sort of like there's a barrier to entry. Like you have to kind of do some research and know what you're talking about, and be really into it to be in it.
Yeah.
Then you get like a tight little crew of people who all, and it's also, you know, I mean, it's quite nerdy, like the way so-and-so does this trick is, you know, and you just spend hours like rewinding videos, looking at stuff. So you've got your little own mini culture that nobody else around you understands, and it was definitely like, I suppose at that time in England, Japan, like fashion-wise, it was a very unusual look.
Yeah,
like, you know, really like big, sort of. I remember that we used to have like really sag pants, like before anybody did that.
Yeah.
And people just used to laugh at us when we walked by the pub. They were just like, "What, no arse?" You know, like. Just, so, I guess.
But it all forces you. All those things, you know, being different from most people around you, forces you more cohesively into a gang or a group. I mean, same thing with punks, it happened all down here.
Yeah.
In the 1970s.
I guess you sort of double down on it, you get more into it because,
So and it's partly that, I mean, the whole punk thing's fascinating because people were wearing their opinions literally on their chests in a very blatant way.
Yeah.
And it's when I I dressed like skinhead for a long time, and I didn't have very short hair, and I shaved my head, and then instantly I was part of something, and everybody treated me in a particular way.
Yeah.
So you do get this feeling that all of a sudden you belong to something. Now I was slightly at odds because I wasn't actually part of what I was looking like I was part of, because I was in there taking photographs, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But you can tell the power of a gang. You can tell the power of belonging, and maybe that's that's what people look for. Maybe it's that question that you ask yourself as you grow up, as you go through youth. So why am I here? Where do I belong? Why am I this person, etc., etc. It's at that moment in our lives that we try and answer those questions.
Yeah, I mean, I was just trying to look for this one. There's this film of the Virgin Prunes, walking around in Dublin.
Yeah.
And because U2 doesn't seem very cool now, but they created their own gang, right?
Yeah.
Lipton Village, which was sort of art gang.
Yeah.
And Virgin Prunes is obviously super weird and intensely gothic. But none of this will be worth talking about if I can't find this video.
I might photograph the Virgin Prunes.
Yeah, really?
I don't know. I might have got completely wrong. My memory's crap these days. But when I first started working, I worked for the NME, the New Musical Express. They'd send me off to photograph bands in places like the Bat Cave and kind of. So I photographed all these weird goth bands of the early 80s.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So maybe the Virgin Prunes are part of that.
There's just, you can find a million pictures of them looking completely insane, but they actually,
I do hope it's them. But.
This is the thing about YouTube as well, things disappear, which is quite depressing. But we can just look at some Virgin Prunes, but them actually always dressed like this and just walking around Dublin, which I sort of imagine was not as accepting of this kind of thing as
I haven't seen those since the early 80s.
You sort of assume that it was.
There's a big guys, there are a lot of black hair.
Yeah. And you sort of assume that they were it was a lot more conservative than it would have been in London.
Yeah.
But I wish I could have found that video. But yes, this is how they looked all the time. It wasn't just for stage appearances. Sorry,
No, don't worry.
I think I was thinking about the Virgin Prunes because you had one of the suggested topics was sadness, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But so really, so you photographed the Virgin Prunes?
Yeah, for one of my NME assignments. When I first came up with art college, the only way to make money was through the music business.
Yeah.
So you'd work for the music papers. It was Sounds, Melody Maker, and I went to the New Musical Express. Where Spencer was the editor, and they'd send you out to a hotel. And it would be something like the Gap Band would be in town for a day. So you photograph, and you photograph. Most people had no idea who you were. There was no sort of. It was almost like a sort of press thing. Yeah. But sometimes you make relationships with people.
Yeah.
So I managed a very nice afternoon with Jar Wobble. Kind of good moments with lots of different odd bands, that kind of SPK. There was some good moments, but you were literally thrown into a hotel room or wherever it was to get a picture. And you got paid £12 per picture.
Really? Was
wow. I had to make my money by doing that when I first started. Wow. And if you got a picture, because most of my pictures weren't printed very big, so it was just £12. If printed a bit bigger, like full page, you get £30. £50 for a cover. I never got a cover.
You never got a cover of the article?
I never got a cover. No. Then my book Skinhead came out and they didn't want to work with me anymore.
I miss Sounds actually.
Do you? I wasn't ever particularly into Sounds.
Really? Because it was...
maybe because they changed, these newspapers changed different times. When I first started, it was the early 80s, and Sounds was very kind of heavy metal.
Yeah, that's what I liked about it. Yeah. It was sort of like more it's sort of, in a way, kind of authentic. It was into like genres without, you know, like okay, metal, not very popular.
Yeah.
With well, I don't know. Well, it was popular, but it's not very respected. Let's put it that way. But they covered it well for the genuine fans of that scene, and I guess for punk as well, like what it had become by that stage, like late, you know, like hardcore.
I guess for me, I had because then they started this oi, you know, they started covering oi music.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like never into that because my skinheadness came from the 60s.
Yes.
So it was all, you know, dance ska and kind of, you know, Detroit and, you know, all the kind of the sort of soul sounds of the 1960s were where I was in love with musically.
Yeah.
So when oi came along, it was like, well, this isn't skinhead, this isn't.
Yeah, skinhead revival's like quite a different thing.
A very different thing, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting though that you know, I love that with Skinhead, with the Skinhead revival, with oi being like a punk revival, with you were talking about hardcore in a way, and like happy hardcore, and then the way that you had Gabba. Yeah. And it's interesting that you constantly have this like more violent, more purist second wave of all these kind of movements. There's always kind of a second wind where it's much more purist, much more.
Skinheadism is now in its sort of, you know, 20th, 30th wave, and it's just totally different in different parts of the world, what it means.
Yeah.
So these things do go on, but certainly the first revival was very much, took a few elements from it, condensed them, made them into one political statement, out it went. It's like, well, this isn't what it's about.
Yeah.
Also, you're taking a cult which starts and, you know, changes as it kind of grows with the kids.
Yeah.
You know, and all of a sudden, you know, you're just reviving one part of it.
Yeah.
So it's a dead, stagnant cult. It's a weird thing, and then that revival gets its own momentum.
Yeah, and I guess it also like the revival. What fueled the revival? It's kind of like the political climate at the time created.
I don't know. You know, for me, I mean, because I remember just down here. Going down to Sloane Square when there was all the trouble between the punks and the Teds.
Yeah.
So they used to clash every Saturday afternoon throughout one summer. There was big running street battles. And on both sides there were skinheads. The skinheads were the punks and the skinheads were the Teds. So it was there for a fight. So I thought, oh, that's what I want to be. But kind of, you know, so there was a kind of, I don't know how much the political climate produced it. I think it was just that love of sort of youthful anger. I'm going to stick another picture in of it talking about youthful anger.
I mean, I'd be interested if there was much influence from happy hardcore and like early '90s hardcore dance music in scene.
Let's say jungle, you know.
Jungle.
Yeah. So
the most anti-fashion kind of music ever, really. In a way.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It was pretty fashionable, I think.
It was very fashionable, but
yeah, like, I mean, this. I always sort of like refer back to this video. I think this is like New Year's Eve '93.
Yeah.
And. This was, which was sort of like remembered as the definitive split. Like the dark side. Before that, I think rave had been a little bit more mixed.
Yeah.
And people would play jungle records and more sort of happy things and Italo house. And then at a certain point in time, there was a schism. And around this time, and this is a sick video as well because it's like Roughage Crew's Goldie's group, obviously, and they were all on. It was very involved with Reinforced Records, and they've got these really sick Reinforced sweatshirts, which I really want.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can get any more. I guess he was quite good at. He sort of packaged it as he sort of, I guess, recognised it as being a new movement because it was something that was part of hardcore, but it became something distinctive and separate, and he like branding it as in the way that he did with Metalheads kind of made it, and that was I used to go to Metalheads a lot basically, and that's been a big influence on.
I mean, it's funny to watch the video because just how much you actually want to be part of that.
Yeah, no, it's just amazing. Like the sound of it.
Let me show you something if I can just see if I can get it up here 1 second. Yeah.
I think one of the things, because I hate that that old man saying things were better, and there's no way that I could be that guy.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I think is slightly sad is that we came up in the 90s and probably in the 80s as well, of a time when music was constantly pushing forward. Like every year, it sounded more like the future, and music still changes. But
there is that is one. I mean, I think that's happening again, but and music I think is incredibly exciting now. But the one thing that I was always amazing to me about Metalheads. So every Sunday, you go down and people were just okay. So. Groove Rider was the top DJ in the scene because he had all of the dubs. Like, basically, all of the producers wanted him to be playing their records.
Yeah.
So he would actually like drive around their house, get DATs, take them to Music House and cut dub plates. But he had the most exclusive dub plates because he was the #1 DJ on the scene, and that's why he was the #1 DJ on the scene.
Yeah.
So. Everybody basically would go to the club. It was Sunday, so it ended like early. But they're all waiting to the end of the night to hear the new music.
Yeah.
Like it's not like people, which is very unusual in dance music in a way, because people want to hear tunes that they know. As soon as something comes on which they know is a new tune, people just go absolutely nuts. Gets like new tunes that get rewound like 3 times, just like people like smashing, like banging bottles on the walls, just excitement about like hearing what's new this week. And it was like every week there'd be like 6 new tunes.
Oh, great.
And they wouldn't actually be available as releases for like sometimes a year.
I mean, it just reminds me, Marco Peroni, who used to be in Adam and the Ants.
Yeah.
He came into part of the punk thing we did. I was talking to him about stuff, and he was saying back in the 1970s, there was the only place you could, if your new record came into Britain, there'd be one of it, and it would go down to maybe they'd have it in Sex, so you'd have to travel down from Oxford or wherever by catching a train to get to Sex in the afternoon, and to sit there and to listen to this kind of 45 that come across from the States. But there was no distribution at all. There were just these sort of odd sort of sounds coming across America, but it was one copy of it.
Wow.
And you'd have to go to a shop on the King's Road to listen to it, and you realise how kind of segmented stuff was then.
Yeah, that's yeah. Being into this scene, it's you knew what the tunes were for, like you'd be hearing them, know the name of it, you know who did it. You've just been hearing it in clubs for months, like sometimes actually over a year before you could actually buy it as well, which was kind of crazy. Yeah. Like if you think about how now it's like absolutely immediate, but I think that music's cope with that in a good way. Like it's actually found a way to thrive and be exciting in the climate where anything is like, you can just listen to it immediately. Yeah.
I'm interested to show you this because I'm not quite sure where to place this. Yeah. But you might go, oh wow.
And this is Italy.
A friend of mine, Matt Williams, sent it to me to look at.
Is this the little kids?
No, it's not. It's well, yeah. I can't show you that. I'll show you. I'll show you.
I recognise the tune because there's a video of little kids dancing in the Netherlands to the same tune at a gabba rave.
Yeah, and this is pretty new.
I mean, just physically, it's such a thing.
Yeah.
And I think it sort of ties back into the sort of general topic of youth that we're sort of we're looking at. I can't do that anymore. I'm sort of vaguely tempted somewhere, but
Yeah. No, it's crazy. Amazing floor in this place.
Italian interiors again.
Yeah.
It's clearly the best.
They're always incredible.
It just kind of goes on and on. It gets more and more of a thing.
It's nuts. I mean, it's interesting. Like, one of the nice things about obviously being able to do this now is, I was into jungle at the time, and we would never kind of admit or believe that there was any kind of connection between that and what we were into.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a new tune, but like the hardcore, as in what that means in Germany, compared to hardcore being like UK rave music. Now, when you're able to just sort of like look back at all these things that have happened, you realise it's totally connected.
Yeah.
It didn't feel it at the time.
Yeah.
You were just like very focused on your thing, but it's like it's not very far away.
Yeah.
I guess like Gabba is sort of comes from German hardcore, I guess, originally, like Frankfurt, and some of the producers there would make tons of different styles of music at the one time. Like they would make like a sort of really cool sort of like Detroit techno sounding thing, and then the next tune would be like just evil Gabba like madness. But under different names, just like one guy making like tons of different tunes, and it was all like one thing at the time. It was just always very unpopular in England. But you listen back to some of the tunes now, and they're actually kind of amazing. But it's taken a while, and I think anybody that's making like dance music now, particularly, they've got so much that they can go back and reference to, in terms of making something new.
But it's still, I always find it, I always find it surprising. I mean, we photographed and filmed a set of teenagers that go into Machine A for a film called Youngsters we did. And at one point we got them to dance in the studio.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to Raquel, who's filming this, what are they doing?
Really?
What is that they're doing? And I've never seen dancing like it. I'm trying to find the still here.
Some new moves.
There was a real, but that's the sort of thing that makes me keep on wanting to do stuff.
Yeah.
Is when you see people, I'll put that still from it.
I think
when you see, sorry, Darius, when you see people who are doing things that you just never imagined.
Yeah.
Or whether it's kind of, it'll come up in a minute, whether it's how these kids were moving and how they're dancing, I just find it, that's what gives me a sort of joy to go on. And it's the same thing when I was doing the sort of weird analogy, or weird comparison, when I was doing my book on pressed flowers in the Natural History Museum. There's 6.5 million specimens, and you'd go through kind of like 500,000, pressed brown grasses, and all of a sudden you find this amazing thing. And it's like, fuck, I never knew that a flower could look like that.
Wow.
And it's that thing, and that's about flowers, but this is about youth. It's that sort of permanent sort of surprise that you get when you see things. You think, I never knew people danced like that.
Yeah.
Which makes you think, hey, well, I wish I was sort of 15 again.
Yeah.
I could dance like that.
Yeah.
And I'm probably best at 56. I'm probably best not trying to do it. But
it's. I mean, I guess in a way, thinking about it, even beyond, like dance is sort of like the ultimate. Zero resources, like pure creative expression, isn't it? That is like you don't even need a skateboard. You don't need like a turntable. You're just walk out the house and like reacting to music.
I mean, I used to be really into Northern Soul. That was kind of one of my phases I went through.
Yeah.
And the dancing with that is beautiful, I think, and really fab.
Yeah.
But now when I see people my age doing it, you just think, oh, please don't. I know you're really good at it. I know it's your thing, but just don't. Because that weird thing that when you see kids doing it, like kind of 18, 17-year-old kids doing it, off their heads on speed and just going for absolutely kind of, all night long doing it.
Yeah.
But when you see somebody who's in their 50s or 60s doing it, however amazing it is that they can still do it because it's so physically demanding,
Yeah.
you just think that takes away some of my love of that scene. Because
Right.
I loved it because the bodies were young and the kids were beautiful and
Okay,
all
yeah,
that, and they glittered, and it was a picture we made in our minds of beauty, of youthful beauty,
Yeah.
and rebellion and counterculture and all those sort of things. But then when you see people doing it when they're my age, you just think, which poses a problem for me because I'm stuck with my age.
Yeah.
The youth is a weird thing because you kind of miss it. It happens without you knowing it.
Yeah.
And you spend a lot of your life thinking, oh, why didn't I do that? And I wish I'd been at that Sex Pistols gig, or I wish I could have danced like that.
Totally,
or whatever
yeah.
it is. But the reality of life is that we're the age we are.
Yeah.
And my worry, I guess, is that we spend a lot of our time wanting to be something we're not. When we're young, we want to be old. When we're old, we want to be young.
Yeah. It's. I guess the thing is sort of also what's appropriate or acceptable to be doing at this age, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that that can be very restrictive, or maybe it's actually quite useful to know. I don't know.
Well, I don't know, because if you take that back to when you were young, you didn't give a hoot what was respectable or what was appropriate or what was exactly that. But you're trying to apply that.
Well, yeah, nothing to lose as well. That's the nice thing about like youth. You just got you can just do exactly whatever you want because you start from nowhere. Yeah. It's like a blank page. But if you've sort of got a lifetime of experience and you've done stuff, then
you should know better.
You start to get a little bit fearful about like destroying what you've done in the past. But
I'll put this up, and we should probably look towards finishing because somebody just handed me out saying it's 12:30.
Okay.
Just to let you know. But so we should look towards, and that's a picture that is from the Chicago riots in the 60s. And I've always been in love with this picture, partly because whoever that gentleman
that jacket is amazing.
Is stunning.
Yeah.
And what is going on in his head, if you try and read it, it's
Repent lesbians.
Yeah, masturbators, churches, preachers, everything. I can't work out whether he's pro-gay, anti-gay, where he's coming from. Faggots, save us from faggots. I've got no idea. But there he's in the middle of the country. He's about to have his head stoved in by some vicious American cop.
That's incredible.
It's just such a weird clash of stories going on there, but all worn of a sort of rebellious kind of pride.
Wow. I mean, do you you'll know actually, Black Audio Film Collective.
Will I?
Yeah. Well, you
I probably should know. We'll know as soon as you show them to me. But
Handsworth Songs.
No, I don't.
This is like, I didn't know about this, like my friend Gunnar told me. But it's like, they made these amazing documentaries. And like, this one's about like, it's kind of shot, the aftermath of the Handsworth like riots. And they just, the music's by this guy, Trevor Matheson, who's like part of the Black Audio Film Collective. But like, totally incredible. I think when is this, like 1981 or something?
Right, yeah, it looks like.
And
amazing sound.
They, it's just they just made some sick films that analyze it, the kind of political issues, the racial issues, but in a very emotional way. And it's not dramatized, but there's something about it. They're just super like beautiful films. I'll try and find a sort of. It's just.
Great.
But yeah, this is like, and it's one of those things. It's like people sort of ask us about nostalgia and stuff because we obviously a lot of what we use is like old things that we've found. But the fact that you can just look at this now.
No.
Whereas to have come across this when it was out, you have had to go to a screening, and not many people saw that.
No.
Like in a way, access to these things, even though they're old, is like about as now as possible. I mean, I was thinking, so you started SHOWstudio in 2000.
Yeah.
I mean, like streaming must have been like close to impossible.
It was. We used to stream. Our cameras would send out an image every minute. So we do a live broadcast. You get one still would go out every minute. So we did.
But you know, I mean, you've been proved totally right. Like the internet is basically like a place to stream videos now.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of weird because I knew at the time that it would get there. You know, I knew it had to be. You know,
yeah, but it's so inconvenient, like and like difficult to work with back then. But now it's like on the phone.
Yeah.
I mean, that was pretty science fiction in a way. Like.
Yeah, I guess, you know. I mean, I guess it's you follow your desires, you know.
Right.
I wanted to see that. I knew somewhere it would happen. I wanted to see it.
Yeah.
So, like most things, you follow your desires.
Yeah. I mean, like, how old's YouTube? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not. We're 16. I don't think it's 16.
No, it's.
I remember
it's
somebody
not even
telling me
half
about
it.
11, I think.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was pretty crazy. No, this is pretty amazing. Well worth watching.
I just heard.
It's the 11th day of September 1985, and the Home Secretary is standing in a Handsworth street with confused eyes.
Yeah, there's a few that you can see online.
And they heard him mutter to journalists. These are sensitive.
And what's the name of the film group that made it?
Black Audio Film Collective.
Somebody said behind him, the higher the monkey climbs, the more he will expose. You can see the problem, right?
It's pretty. I mean, it's really. What's sort of sad about it is it's like totally relevant as well. Like, you know what I mean.
But there are issues that don't go away.
Yeah.
They pop up in different places, but it's the same issues.
Yeah.
Always the same issues. Very sadly, I think we're going to have to stop there. So many images I wanted to show you.
Yeah, no, and we haven't really come up with any. We're useless. Well, videos, I guess, was like contribution.
Should we finish on love? Is that a good one to put as a last thing?
Wicked.
Oh, I've got us a love. This one is a. Which is a kind of nice sentiment of love.
Where's this from?
It's Raina Dahl who's making the film with me after this. She and I researched this project, and it's one of the images that she found.
Wow.
There's not much love in streetwear, is there? Not overtly. There's a lot of
song. Yeah, you're right. It's a very negative atmosphere, which I think is like quite teenage, which is sort of probably appropriate.
Yeah. Oh, hold on, I get another note. Peter the Potter, it says. Okay, 1 second.
Peter the Potter.
I'll find it 1 second.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's sort of like a little kind of gang mentality, maybe.
Well, I think it was you talking, but I might have got mixed up with a movie I saw at the weekend called Fresh Dressed. But I think you spoke in an interview about how streetwear is defined by what it isn't.
Yeah, you can't. It's not a free for all. You know, there's sort of rules which are dictated by peer pressure. So, it's same as the skinhead thing. It's just like removing everything. You know, it's just like, as you said, it's like anti-fashion in a sense. Like we're not into fashion. That's our look.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it definitely
Similar
feels like a very direct descendant of that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the interest in it is to try and do something new, but it's got very strict rules. You can't just do whatever you want, which sort of, I mean, I guess we sort of must like that because that's why we do it.
Yeah, there's something that gets to the core of our belief. You know, when you're going through, like, it's a whole thing, I think, of trying to find out who you are. You know, what your sexual orientation is, how far you're willing to go in life, what sort of person you are.
Yeah.
And weirdly, we get about 5 years to try and find out, which is youth.
Yeah.
So 15 to 20, you do all that. up until 15, most times don't have any ability to find out who you are, and after 20, you've moved on to try and earn some money.
You've made some decisions that kind of like remove the freedom of choice.
I should put this on there.
That's pretty amazingly well.
That's Peter the Potter, who's a fantastic artist. That, just a great, brutal juxtapositions, but really delicate and also very sensual.
That's really nicely done.
What that about? Probably shouldn't finish on that. Let's not make that one the last one, but one that we have to kind of
a little bit more cheery. Yeah. Oh, I mean, kind of, what's the last thing to play? Shall I play Orbidoid? Just as this is usually the last tune of the set. I don't. This is completely irrelevant. I just wanted to play it.
Oh.
So there's this one guy on YouTube who does. He just cuts up films to tunes, and this is like Alan Rob Grillet movie. So really weird film, but this Orbidoid, absolutely amazing record, and just like he's got so many videos on YouTube where it's just like really obscure film matched with really obscure music, but kind of have you seen these movies?
No, not at all.
Alan Rob Grillet is like very, very strange dude. He was like so last year at Marienbad he wrote that.
Oh, did he? Okay, well I know last year at Marienbad.
And so he made some films and they're really strange because he like quite sick as well because he was really famous sadist and they're just super strange. I guess last year at Marienbad is famous for like non-linear, like no real plot and it's just like very repetitive. Yeah. That was also influenced by the Morel book actually. I think that's how I found out about it. But yeah, he made a series of movies after that which were just like more unfollowable than Marienbad.
Yeah.
But also with like weird sort of like torture scenes just cropping up.
Right.
Pretty amazing dude.
Yeah, I love the look of this. Okay.
But this song as well, it's like just one 7-inch, like they never made anything else. Is this a good place to end? It doesn't seem to make any sense at all.
It's good place to end then.
Okay.
It makes no sense. So, thank you both very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Darius.
Thank you.